Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Ukraine's done it. The number of soldiers fighting for Russia killed in Ukraine is now over 200,000. This is according to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense, and this is a staggering number. This number doesn't include wounded in action, missing in action, or prisoners of war. This is 200,000 soldiers fighting for Russia killed in Ukraine. And if you notice, I'm being very specific with my language. I'm not saying 200,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. I'm saying 200,000 soldiers fighting for Russia have been killed. Ukraine counts everyone in this number. So how is this possible? And I think going back in time 15 months, there's been a lot of confusion about Russia's fighting forces. And the media was saying 200,000 Russian soldiers are gathered on the border about to launch a full-scale invasion. But this number doesn't include the DPR and LPR fighters. We're going to talk more about them in a second. The Wagner mercenaries, as well as the other private military groups in Ukraine, maybe the Chechen National Guards, or any other fighters from Syria, Central Asia, or Africa. In reality, 15 months ago, Russia's fighting forces were close to 500,000. So how is this possible? And we have to consider the populations of the occupied territories in Donetsk and Luhansk. So these two metropolitan cities were in open rebellion against the government in Kyiv, being supplied and funded by the Russians. The Russian government de facto controlled this region for almost 8 years, since 2014. So I did the math on the back of an envelope. We'll use nice round numbers. What was the pre-2014 population of the cities of Donetsk and Luhansk? And it's about 1.5 million people. These are Ukrainian citizens, not Russian citizens. And because of the fighting and the hostility over 8 years, let's assume these regions depopulated a little bit. We'll say that about 500,000 Ukrainian citizens either fled west into western Ukraine or east into Russia proper. That leaves in these occupied territories for 8 years about 1 million people. We'll assume half are women, and Russia's not going to conscript or force mobilize them. So that leaves about 500,000 men, Ukrainian citizens, but loyal to Russia. Let's say half are too old or too young to be conscripted. This leaves a mobilization pool of 250,000 men, Ukrainian citizens in Donetsk and Luhansk, that were force mobilized by the Russians. And I don't think many of these guys have survived 13 months of war. Russia doesn't really care if these people from the Donbas region live or die. Just look at what they did to the city of Mariupol, the city of Bakhmut, the cities of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. This is the Donbas region. Their propaganda says they're trying to liberate these people. So forced conscription, how Russia has wiped out the entire male population of the occupied territories of the Donbas region. These were not Russian citizens. These were Ukrainian citizens forced by Russia to fight this war. Additionally, when we consider the Wagner Group, about 50,000 prisoners have been taken from Russian prisons and sent to the front lines in these human meat wave attacks. These guys don't have a good survival rate either. So when we think about 200,000 soldiers fighting for Russia killed in Ukraine, how many of them are DPR, LPR conscripts, originally Ukrainian citizens used by Russia in this war? I'm going to guess maybe 60 or 70,000 have been killed. This is a terrible tragedy for the people of the Donbas region, a terrible tragedy for Ukraine. Once again, given that these are Ukrainian citizens. Now with the Wagner Group, how many tens of thousands of these prisoners have been used up? And it's probably close to 40 or 50,000 over the last 13 months. So how many Russian conscripts and Russian contract soldiers have been killed? Probably another 60 or 70,000. This is how you get to that 200,000 number. Russia is never going to admit their true losses, and they don't even bother counting. They're not keeping track at all of DPR, LPR fighters, or Wagner mercenaries. So I made this chart for you to kind of show you the level of stratification and how much Vladimir Putin cares about these people. And at the top, of course, you've got Russian elite forces, the Spetsnaz, the pilots. These guys get everything they need. All the equipment, all the training. They're Russia's best. So Putin wants these guys to stay alive, even though they are heavily being used on the front lines. Number two is the Chechens. I don't really understand why. They seem to have freedom of movement to go anywhere they want, and they have all the equipment they could ever need. They really only go to the war zone to film TikTok videos, and they don't actually do any serious fighting day to day. Number three, I would argue, are the Wagner elite forces. Once again, these are all ex-military pilots and special forces. They're very valuable to Russia's war effort, so they get the best equipment, they get the best treatment, nobody messes with them. Number four would be Russian contract soldiers. These are Russian men who have volunteered to be in the military. So they get the best assignments, they get the best treatment, they get the best resources and training. Russia tries to keep them alive because they chose to be there. Next would be the Wagner contract soldiers. In effect, these guys are the enforcers. They're the ones keeping everyone else on the front lines in order. They're not used as cannon fodder. They're not used in human meat wave attacks. They're the guys with the guns shooting anyone trying to retreat. So they're treated pretty well by Putin. Six would be Russian mobilized men. These are all veterans. These are all people with skills and expertise that should know what they're doing. So generally they should be kept alive as long as possible. Below that are Russian conscripts. These are fresh, 18, 19, 20-year-old Russian men that don't really know a whole lot yet. But they are Russian citizens, and they should be treated better than all these people. I do argue that amongst Russian conscripts, there's also a hierarchy. If you're from Moscow and St. Petersburg, your life has more value, but if you're from a rural region, you don't matter as much. So once you get below all of these levels, this is when you get to the Ukrainian citizens, the DPR and LPR contract soldiers. These are the guys that wanted to fight this independence movement. They volunteered to do this. They're the enforcers within the DPR and LPR militias. Below that are the forced mobilized men, the conscripts for the DPR and LPR. Below them are the conscripts in the other occupied territories, Ukrainian citizens from Mariupol and Melitopol and Kherson. They've been forced mobilized and are being used by the Russian military. Below that, we've got Russian prisoners. The Russian MOD has been taking prisoners comparable to what the Wagner Group did, and they're not being treated pretty well. Below that, Wagner prisoners, if there are any left. Prigozhin has no intention of letting any of these guys survive this war, so it's keep using them on the front lines until they're all gone. And then probably at the bottom of the bottom are any Syrians, Africans, or Central Asians that were tricked into signing a contract and being sent to Ukraine. I imagine nobody cares if they live or die. So, It's just bizarre how Russia is choosing to fight this war, and there is a hierarchy, and they all know it. All these people in the war zone know whose life is more important than whose. They all know who's going to get better treatment, who's going to get better pay, who's going to get death benefits if they die. But Russia doesn't care. Russia doesn't care that 200,000 fighters have been killed so far. And I want to highlight the cynicism and hypocrisy of it all. Here's Solovyev, Russia's #1 propagandist, pretending to be sad at the death of a Russian soldier.
Я не знаю, получит ли он посмертно героя, не мне решать. Но он точно герой. У украинцев такого практически не бывает.
Yeah, I'm not buying his sincerity at all. If Russia had just pulled out of Ukraine a couple weeks ago and ended this war, this Russian soldier would still be alive. Does Solovyev care how many more Russian soldiers exactly like this man die in this war before Russia admits defeat and pulls back to their own border? Here's a picture I'm going to share with you. These children are all wearing these red caps. This is the Putin Youth Army. Basically, Putin is getting middle schoolers and high schoolers ready for their military careers. Putin is preparing for decades of war. He wants to reconstitute the Soviet Empire, the Russian Empire. He knows this is going to take decades to do. So the indoctrination of the children in Russia is pretty nauseating. And they've started putting hero desks in schools. So on this desk is the face of a killed Russian soldier and his biography. And Russian school children have to sit at the desk and stare at the face of a dead Russian soldier all day while at school. So this is what I'm going to do for you guys. I'm going to show you a bunch of clips, all from the last couple days. If you think Western media is full of lies and Western media is spinning a tale, then I'm going to share stories from Russians of how this war is going for Russian soldiers. So this clip I'm going to link down below if you want to watch the whole thing. But this aired on Kremlin State TV. This propagandist is reading an email in which Russian soldiers messaged him saying they were robbed by Russian military police at a checkpoint. They were returning from the war zone to Moscow to have some of their drones repaired. These drones were purchased with private money, fundraised money online to buy drones for this Russian unit. And they were robbed by Russian military police at the border. Their quadcopters were taken away, and their cell phones were taken away. So this guy is just trying to raise awareness of this event to stop this from happening, but everyone in Russia's military is robbing everyone and abusing everyone. Here's a clip from the residents of the village of Bashkortostan. Once again, another translation from Dmitry over at War Translated. And these Russian civilians are filming a video for the internet, trying to get the prosecutor general to investigate the death of one of their city's citizens. So they say they're appealing to the general prosecutor in relations to one of their countrymen who was mobilized last September and was sent to Ukraine, and he was brutally tortured, mocked, beaten, and hung by his fellow servicemen. The level of hazing and abuse within the Russian military was already bad prior to the war starting, But now that there's competition for limited resources, the amount of infighting, abuse, and fratricide is staggering inside the Russian military. I'll link this clip down below if you want to watch it. And because this is a slave army of literal prisoners and conscripts and mobilized men who don't want to be there, the level of abuse and punishment from leadership has to be severe to keep their soldiers afraid. Afraid that if they don't follow orders, something bad is going to happen to them. So in my last clip, I mentioned these zindans that Russian leadership is starting to use. And they're open-air dungeons. So if you do something in the Russian military that your commanding officer doesn't like, you can be punished by being thrown in one of these pits without food and water for 72 hours. This is becoming a standard practice across the Russian military in the war zone. Here's a clip I am going to play for you from a Russian military correspondent. I remember seeing this guy's clips from 6 or 7 months ago after the mobilization, and he was pretty excited about the prospects. Russia was getting this influx of hundreds of thousands of new soldiers. He was pretty confident that Russia was going to start making some serious progress. But this is the clip that he put out this week, talking about how poorly Russian men are being treated for not being part of the proper Russian military. So let's watch the clip.
И такие случаи, братцы, они не единичны, да, вот у меня ребята есть, кто в госпиталях просто лежал, да, с пулевыми ранениями, ждал, пока эти ранения затянутся, ими там, ну, фактически толком не занимались, да. И вот они вышли с госпиталей и поехали в свои родные города с бумажками о ранении, чтобы получить реабилитацию. На что им военкоматы отвечают, что вагнерам, там, подразделениям другим, там, народной милиции ДНР никому не помогают. Помогают только Министерство обороны, блядь. Мне, вот, блядь, вообще непонятно. Мы одно дело делаем или чем мы вообще занимаемся, нахуй? Нахуй было начинать это СВО, если такое отношение... Блять, вообще, вот просто я не...
So Russian men fighting for the Wagner Group or being put into DPR and LPR units, they're not receiving treatment once they return to Russia. These are Russian men who were wounded in the war zone, and they're being denied rehabilitation, prosthetics, benefits for being injured in the war zone. The Russian government is doing everything they can to save money by denying benefits to Russian men who participated in the war. This Russian guy who supports the war doesn't think that's right. Okay? And in my last update video, I shared with you guys this clip of the Russian soldier who surrendered to a Ukrainian drone. This drone video has been seen by tens of millions of people online, and this Russian soldier who surrendered gave an hour-long interview to a Ukrainian journalist. And in this interview, he admitted that his leadership handed him over to a Wagner mercenary, and the Wagner mercenary told him, he's regular Russian military, the Wagner mercenary told him, if anyone gets injured, I'm just going to put a bullet in them. Nobody is being medically treated. Nobody is being medically evacuated. Anybody in the regular Russian military who is injured on the front lines is just going to be shot. Nobody is going to be saved. And even if you're lucky enough to be evacuated for medical treatments, the level of care in the Russian military is horrifying. The most you can get is a slight injury. If you get something more, that's it. You will die, says a Russian military paramedic. His comments highlight the terrible state of medical care in the Russian army. The head of the Kalishnikov Center for Tactical Medicine, Artem Katulin, says that more than half of the Russian soldiers who have died in Ukraine lost their lives because of the improper medical care they've been provided, with a third of amputations being due to improper tourniquet application. So yes, this number of 200,000 starts looking more realistic when you think about how terrible Russian medical care is for their wounded. So here's a tweet from the parody account Darth Putin, day 448 of my 3-day war. 200,000 casualties isn't a defeat if I'm prepared to lose 500,000 Russian men. So yes, more than likely, Putin is going to keep going until the entire Russian state breaks in some way. He's lost 200,000 soldiers fighting for him in Ukraine, and he's willing to go further. Hundreds of thousands more. He doesn't care how many of his soldiers die in Ukraine. The next story we should follow up on concerns the use of Russia's hypersonic missiles 2 days ago. Arguments rage over downed hypersonic missiles versus destroyed Patriot air defense system. The Kremlin has denied Ukraine's claims to have shot down 6 Kinzhal missiles 2 days ago, May 16th, and claimed a US-made Patriot air defense system was destroyed instead. So first of all, anyone claiming that a Patriot air defense system was destroyed don't understand that its numerous vehicles spread out. So I think the number of trucks in a single air defense system is 8, and they're purposely spread out so one missile can't destroy everything. This kind of seems like common sense. It is possible that one of the vehicles or one of the launchers was destroyed. So let me first play for you Russia's announcement. So this is Russian state TV, where they're going to announce the success of their missile strikes on May 16th.
Сегодня ночью вооруженные силы Российской Федерации нанесли сосредоточенный удар высокоточным оружием большой дальности воздушного и морского базирования по пунктам дислокации подразделений Вооруженных сил Украины, а также местам хранения боеприпасов, вооружения и военной техники, доставленных из западных стран. Цель удара достигнута. Все назначенные объекты поражены. Высокоточным ударом гиперзвуковым ракетным комплексом «Кинжал» в городе Киев поражен зенитно-ракетный комплекс «Patriot» производства США. Средствами противовоздушной обороны в течение суток перехвачено 7 крылатых ракет большой дальности Storm Shadow, 3 противорадиационные ракеты «Хар», а также 7 реактивных снарядов систем залпового огня «Хаймарс».
Okay, wow, that was a lot. So let me read for you what he just said. He said in one night, May 16th, all designated facilities were hit. So every missile and drone that Russia launched successfully hit their targets. Nothing was shot down by Ukraine's air defense systems. 7 Storm Shadow missiles were shot down in a single night. 3 HARM missiles shot down in a single night. 7 HIMARS launchers destroyed in a single night, and 5 Patriot launchers destroyed in a single night. Anyone that could possibly believe that to be true, I got a bridge to sell you. I don't know what to say. This is just staggeringly laughable how stupid the official Russian MOD makes these claims to their people every night. So here's the picture on Telegram that's been circulating, claiming that this is a destroyed Patriot air defense launcher. But look at the truck. Notice these 2 panels here. There's 2 indents on the side of the vehicle. On a Patriot launcher, there's not 2, there's just 1. But there is another vehicle that has the 2 identical to the photo being circulated on Russian propaganda accounts. And this belongs to an HX2 series truck. It's just a normal transport truck. Ukraine was given 61 of these. So the Russians wasted one of their expensive missiles to destroy a loading truck. And then they used the picture online to claim they destroyed a Patriot air defense launcher. Now, we are getting reports from CNN that one of the Patriot launching vehicles was damaged, but the damage is minimal. The damage to a Patriot air defense system following a Russian missile attack near Kyiv, this was according to 3 US officials, with one official describing it as minor damage. The US sent inspectors to examine the system on Tuesday after being told by the Ukrainians that the system appeared to have been damaged. The damage is so minimal, they're not even going to bother repairing it. They're going to continue using the truck as is. So it definitely wasn't destroyed. But the Patriot system isn't magic. Losses in Ukraine can be expected. The Patriot has done a phenomenal job during its short service in Ukraine, but it was always going to be Russia's top target. They're going to continue targeting this Patriot air defense system, all of the vehicles, all the trucks, until they eventually get it. It is possible. And Russia last night tried again, launching 30 cruise missiles. Ukraine is claiming that they successfully intercepted and shot down 29 of them. And what's interesting is they didn't fire any more of their hypersonic glide missiles, the Kinzhal. They stuck with the X-555s and calibers, 6 caliber cruise missiles, yeah. So what's going on here with Russia's wonder weapon? Vladimir Putin's hype of Russia's hypersonic glide missiles have been proved to be false. I kept asking myself, how did Russia beat the United States in developing hypersonic glide missiles? And the answer is Russia didn't. Russia has no true hypersonic missiles. The Russians have been lying about the performance of their best weapons to the entire world. This is hilarious. If I was a Russian nuclear strategist today, I would be very worried. You just received proof of concept that Western air and missile defenses can intercept 100% of your tactical nuclear delivery vehicles in a time-coordinated multi-vector attack. Yes, Russia still has ICBMs when they go into space and then re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. They're coming in at Mach 23. A Patriot's not going to take that down. But anything launched from a bomber is a cruise missile. And Russia was claiming they had hypersonic glide vehicles that could bob and weave and avoid, NATO air defense systems. And this has been proven to be false. The Patriot air defense system can shoot down Russia's best cruise missile. So Russia's not happy. 3 Russian hypersonic missile scientists are being jailed for treason. At least 3 Russian scientists who have worked on hypersonic missile development have been arrested on suspicion of treason over the past year. This is according to their colleagues who published an open letter. So treason charges are heard behind closed doors in Russia as they deal with what authorities deem to be classified information. Those found guilty face a maximum prison sentence of 20 years. So Russia's academic and scientific community is feeling persecuted. I'm sure Russia is unhappy with the performance of their military equipment, and they're starting to turn on their engineers and scientists. So what do you do? What do you do if you're a Russian scientist and you're scared you and your family are going to get purged? Well, thankfully, the CIA is stepping up. CIA launches Telegram channel. This is the CIA's official website, and they put out a press release on May 16th. On Monday, for the first time, the Central Intelligence Agency established a presence on Telegram to reach individuals in countries who have no access to other social media or independent media. So the CIA is currently trolling Russia. This is their official account on Twitter, 3.4 million followers. and they're tweeting in Russian. They put out this minute and 51-second video. I'll link it down below. It's entirely in Russian. And what I've seen from the translations is it's a propaganda video saying, hey, if you're feeling alienated or threatened by your government, maybe you're a government official or scientist, the CIA is there for you. Come to us, give us information, and we'll help you and your family get to the West. There's probably a lot of Russian scientists that would love to take this offer. So let's quick check in on the front lines, and it's not looking good for the city of Bakhmut. The Ukrainians still control a couple buildings, but more or less they're out of the city. And I think they knew this was inevitable, so they decided to go on this local counteroffensive to retake trench positions on the south and the north. One, this is making it safer for forces in the city to pull out. They now can use this road again. But two, it does kind of deny Russia the propaganda win. If they take the entirety of the city of Bakhmut, it's being well offset by the territory they've lost on the north and south flanks. So this is not a lightning movement. This is not a rapid advance. It's a slow grind, clearing out all these trench positions. I've been seeing the GoPro videos online, and it's not pretty fighting. This is very difficult fighting for the Ukrainian forces on the flanks. And this is Russia's victory. This is a satellite image of what Bakhmut looked like a year ago, May of 2022. And this is what Bakhmut looks like today. This is Russia's victory. This is Ruski Mir. This is the only thing that Russia has to offer the world. Putin's plan is to reconstitute the Soviet Empire, the Russian Empire, meaning that if Ukraine loses this war, countless other cities across Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Eastern Europe, this is what's coming for them. This is what Putin is planning for. Decades of war to retake all this territory that used to belong to the Russian Empire, and they don't care how many people die, how many people they kill, or how many lives they ruin. Okay, let's wrap up this video with some feel-good clips. The first one I have for you is a Ukrainian defender sharing his lunch with a squirrel. That's got to be one happy squirrel. Final clip I have for you are loved ones waiting for Ukrainian defenders at the train station. I'm guessing they're taking leave. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.